And finally, number 1.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to our continual coverage of the best of 2019. This is actually the last piece that's going to happen in 2019. But Happy New Year to everybody, and welcome back to another week here of this. Today, I'm talking about the top 10 productions of 2019. Before we get started into this, I want to talk a little bit briefly about this. I'm talking about games and their production value when you put them on the table, the wow value, how well it's produced. But I want to be clear, there's a couple things I'm not talking about here. I'm not going to mention over-the-top things like Suburbia, the deluxe Kickstarter version, because that was a deliberately deluxe edition. It wasn't the normal game of it or even the Kickstarter upgraded game. It was an extra above and beyond version. Secondly, this isn't going to be dominated by miniatures. I mean, there are some miniature games on the list for sure, and miniatures are fine. I like miniatures as much as the next person, but there are other things in production besides miniatures. The way the game looks, the graphic design, the way it all fits into the box, the table presence itself. And while miniatures appeal to a lot of people, myself included, they're not the only thing that counts for best production. I'm sure I'm going to get controversy, but at the end of the list, you can ask me why I didn't put a game on my list, and I'll tell you. Are you ready? You ready to guess? Let's get started.
Number 10.
All right. Well, number 10 on my list is a game that is one of the hot themes of the year is dinosaurs. And this game had a lot of cool things for dinosaurs, and that's Dino Genex. Dino Genex, which once again is Jurassic Park, the board game. I say once again because there Dinosaur Island and other games are claiming that too. And this one looks a whole lot more like Jurassic Park, but it has really cool meeples of the different kinds of dinosaurs inside it. So, and then you have the walls. You can see the 3D walls and the pens and the artwork, and the whole thing just that is really cool. The art was good of these dinosaurs. I mean, they could have just put Jurassic Park on the cover and you would never have noticed, really. I really like the production of this one. A nice, fun, fairly, light is maybe too wrong of a word, medium weight style dinosaur game. But when you played it, some people came by and looked at it, they knew what the game was about just by looking at it. Really cool production. So my number 10, Dino Genex.
Number 9.
My number 9 is a game that you might not expect to be in here, but it's a game that just was so pretty to look on the table that I thought it deserved to be in, and that is Bossk, which still drives me a little crazy because Bossk is one of the bounty hunters from Star Wars. But I'll get over that. Bossk is also a noun that no one ever uses for a group of trees or bushes. Like, look at that Bossk we're passing. No one says that, but it is a word. Now you can say it and impress everyone around you or annoy them at your nerddom. Bossk had these three-dimensional trees here that were made of cardboard, very similar to a game that came out a few years ago called Photosynthesis, and then wooden leaves that laid around. And the whole thing, and this is what I'm talking about production, the whole thing was just tied together, really pretty, really well done, just a beautiful look to it. You know, when you came across it, the idea of the fall leaves falling, I hate fall. But I will admit that fall looks pretty up north, and this game did a really good job of portraying that and adding theme to what is essentially an abstract strategy game. My number 9 is Bossk, and yes, I know the bounty hunters spelled differently.
Number 8.
Number 8's a game that doesn't get talked about very much. I mean, it was a big deal at Origins and Gen Con, I guess, and kind of fell off the radar, but it has a very macabre look to it. I believe I used that word in my review, and I think anytime I talk about this word, I'll use that. This game, I'll use that word, and that is Dead Men's Cabal. Dead Men's Cabal, which has a stark cover, but I don't know that the cover gets you. It's what's inside the game. There are bones inside the game. So this is, you know, the game itself, which they almost set up to look like a dungeon that you would go through, and it has nothing to do with that. It's a kind of worker placement game. But what's really cool about this game is all the massive amount of skulls and bones that you use as resources over the course of this. And it gives this game a very distinct vibe. Having skulls of 4 different colors and using these femurs as a currency in the game. And it just, that combined with the look of the game, it was kind of that kind of game that made you stop and go, well, that's different, that's cool. The theme is relatively loose, you know, as so was Bossk. But this one is a pretty neat idea. I like it a lot. My number 8, Dead Men's Cabal.
Number 7.
All right, let's put a miniatures game on the list finally, but this one is there because of the art/miniatures, and I debate it on whether this was a kid's game or not, actually, because it's that light of a game, but it's really fun, and that's Wacky Races. Now, interestingly enough, Cabal, who published this game, Wacky Races, it feels like there's two things. One, I feel like they published it for the modern generation, using something that my grandfather would be interested in. Like, this is before my time and almost before my dad's time, right? The Wacky Races, the old cartoon. But then the little vehicles. Now, this picture in particular is showing you the painted one, when they did have a painted set you could get. But there's I think it's available, I'm not even sure. But the non-painted version looks great too. Each of these 3D little plastic vehicles, and then you have the cartoon, the board, and the whole thing just gave off the vibe of the cartoon Wacky Races. Again, a very light, simple, easy, ha ha ha, I got you type racing game, but the way the components came across, just fantastic. Really liked the whole production value. Wacky Races is my number 7.
Number 6.
Now, as a general matter, of course, I'm not putting reprints on my list because, well, they're in the reprint category. And reprints, by very definition, are better. So if you're looking for Atlantis Rising, it's not going to be here. But this one technically isn't a reprint. It's technically a new game. And that's why it wasn't on my reprint list either. It's really iffy. Whatever, all these lists are subjective. We'll find out at the end when you tell me the 600 games I didn't put on the list. But my number 6 is Glenmore 2. Glenmore 2 Chronicles, which is the sequel to Glenmore, even though it, from what I understand, I haven't played Glenmore, that it's very close to like Glenmore 1.5. But the box and the production here, so it doesn't look like a lot, really, at any one part, but the whole thing put together. The tiles themselves, the artwork on them, I really liked it. Plus, they were really distinctive as to what they did. This is a perfect, to me, example of having a game that has great artwork and it's functional. The functional icons in the corner weren't so much that it kind of detracted from the artwork, but the artwork wasn't so obtuse I couldn't figure out how to play it. That coupled with wooden barrels and different resources and just a really cool look to it. And then in a really neat box. I mean, this looked kind of like an Eagle Griffin Lacerda production. That's the way the box came across. And the whole thing, especially that cover, which at first I was like, it kind of looks boring, and then I just kept looking at it and wish I could get a copy of it to put on my wall because it's a pretty neat painting. So that's Glenmore 2 Chronicles.
Number 5.
Number 5 is a game that it was a Kickstarter, and I just like it because it just had a very unique flair to it, and that is Quad Heroes. So Quad Heroes, which came with miniature little cubes and boards, and these boards are gorgeous, folks. It's a fantastic production. They have that whatever you call where the ink is slightly raised up off the thing and you embossed ink, or what, I don't know what it's called, but it looks really neat. The boards were beautiful. It had tons of cards. It had cool little crystals all over the place. And then the Quad Heroes themselves, both cute and neat at the same time. They were Baby Yoda before Baby Yoda came out. Cubes that you would move around and rotate from face to face, and depending on what face was up would depend on how they moved. A mix of Robo Rally and a whole bunch of other games. And the whole production value of this looked, if I'm understanding correctly, this is their first production, and it looked like a company who's been doing it for a long time. I was very impressed with this one. My number 5, Quad Heroes.
Number 4.
Number 4 for me is another game that people haven't heard much of, but I really liked it. Again, it has some miniatures, but it has a lot of other neat stuff. Cool artwork, cool everything, and that is Miss Thea, which again sounds like I'm mispronouncing something. But Miss Thea, this beautiful art in the cover is just the beginning. Inside there are miniatures, there is a kind of rotating board, there are cards, and everything comes together to create kind of this whole thing. Now, this picture here technically is, I believe, Ikean, which is their second game, but Miss Thea very similar to that, where it has these miniatures and it looks like this war game, but it's not. There's these massively giant monsters that come on the board and get you, but you have to kind of deal with them. You're going after each other, moving things around, but the whole thing has an otherworldly look to it. And one of my complaints about science fiction and fantasy is it's often very generic. And I thought Miss Thea felt different. It felt unusual and it felt cool. And if you never had a chance to play it, come to one of our Dice Tower conventions because it's in the library. Miss Thea, my number 4.
Number 3.
Number 3 is the simplest game on my list, but it is definitely a beautiful game that every time it gets played, people stop and look at it. And that's because Pretzel Games does it, and their games are always of the highest quality. This is Men at Work. Men at Work, which I don't know that the cover would have necessarily sold me, but when you take a look at the game itself, it's very simple. It just has all these different wooden beams and these little construction workers with cute hats sitting on top of these beams and carrying things on their shoulders. It's a thematic dexterity game, which is rare in of itself. And when you're placed on a table, it just looks fantastic. We've actually played this live this past year, so you can go back and watch us playing it. But it just looks terrific when you're trying to place this. It's another take on the whole Jenga variant, things where you're trying to stack stuff without making things fall over. This one gives you kind of some restrictions as to what you can place each turn, and it's really quite entertaining. And when you're done, looks fantastic. So that's Men at Work, my number 3.
Number 2.
Well, number 2 had to make my list by sheer volume. Okay, so I said this list would not be dominated by miniature games, but if there was a miniature game to dominate the list, a miniature game that came with more miniatures than almost any other game. They were pretty cool miniatures, and a few of them I bought just because they were miniatures. Also, some background and other stuff. Now, I want to be clear on my number 2 that I am including the production of the game, but I'm not including the rule book, because if I included the rule book, this would go from number 2 to number 200 million, and that would be a big drop. That's how bad the rule book is. But the game itself, the production value is high, and that is Batman. Or more specifically, Batman Gotham City Chronicles, which is so big, if you got the Kickstarter version, that you got 2 boxes of it. Now, that cover alone made me pretty happy, because there's all the Batman good guys and all the Batman bad guys, and Batman has, as much as I like Marvel better than DC, Batman has a way better lineup of villains than any of the Marvel people do. And in this box, tons and tons of miniatures. When you set it up, you have these boards, and they did a good job with the overhead shots. And even the boards and how you moved everything around. I mean, I love this game. If only you could figure out how to play it. But the dice were good quality. I got a dinosaur, I got a Batmobile, I got all kinds of cool stuff. But even just the base things, just Batman and some Robin against a bunch of thugs and the Joker or Mr. Freeze. It's all really well done. They did a good job in this production, and it seemed like it would be erroneous for me not to have mentioned Batman Gotham Chronicles.
And finally, number 1.
Is it okay if the number 1 game on my list doesn't have miniatures? Now, some people might, I saw here in the comments, someone said On Mars should have made the list. I'm going to call On Mars a 2020 game, and we're going to treat it that way for purposes of all of our lists and stuff, because it literally just delivered to everybody last week. And so most people aren't going to have a chance to play it till 2020, thus we're considering it a 2020 game. But you'd be close if you had guessed On Mars. The number 1 production for me this year that I was very impressed with was Escape Plan, not Escape Run. That's really bad handwriting, Tom. Escape Plan by Vasel is a very thematic Euro in which you and a bunch of other people are trying to escape out of a city with a bunch of loot. Now, I know there's a difference between the Kickstarter version and the non-Kickstarter version. I've seen both, and while the Kickstarter version is an A+, the non-Kickstarter version is also an A+, because you can't really go higher than A+. You just get extra credit if you get the Kickstarter version. It is fantastic. From the boards to the art to the little keys that you have, even if you don't have the metal keys and you just have the other keys, and the artwork on the board and the symbology. Man, this is a complex game that you can figure out, because it's that cool looking. This is a game that when it's on the table, people are like, what is this? And you say Escape Plan. And it all works together. The theme, the mechanisms, but the components are what make this one shine. Now, Ian O'Toole, of course, everyone loves him with his graphic design. I am not the Ian O'Toole maniac fan that many of you are, but he did do a fantastic job on this one. I liked every piece of this production. It felt like a 70s style escape heist movie brought to the board. So just unbelievably cool production. My number 1, Escape Plan. All right, burn me! What did I miss? Wingspan. Oh, Wingspan had great production values. That was cool. I just didn't put it on the list this year. Tainted Grail has really cool miniatures and has a nice book and artwork, but I don't know. I just want to put it on my top 10 productions. I don't go by just miniatures. Tapestry? No. Tapestry, hands down, did not make the list. Wouldn't even make my top 50 because of the fact that those buildings don't fit on the boards well, and that drives me batty. Cloudspire was cool. Skull Hollow, yes, very, very good. Skull Hollow could have made the list. Parks, I did not play, but I know Parks is really nice. Let's see, what else are people saying that I missed? Does packaging and the box insert come into play? Not particularly. In fact, you'd be sad to see to my right over here, there's a pile of inserts which I'm chucking, and they're nice looking inserts, but I'm sick of inserts for games because I have to then hold the game perfectly flat or everything falls out. That drives me nuts. Let's see, Cthulhu Death May Die. Nope, I didn't pick that one. Cthulhu Death May Die has some nice miniatures and fantastic packaging, actually. I do like that each of the guys comes with their own packaging and all, but at the end of the day, it looks like another generic Cthulhu game to me on how it looks. Your mileage may vary. Yggdrasil Chronicles is a really pretty game, for sure. I don't know that I would pick it. I haven't played it yet, but that big tree and everything looks, at first blush, like it's a detriment to the game. Like it's going to be hard to figure out where stuff is and that tree is going to get in the way. I might be wrong. Nemesis didn't come out this year. Horrified, that's good. Just didn't make the top 10. Ego's First Continent, no, it was decent, but it wouldn't have made my top 10 production values. Let's see. Everdell did not come out this year. Please don't forget you're counting on Mars as a 2020 game next year. I'm actually making a list and checking it twice to keep track of such things. Empire's North had good production. Yes, the Funko Pop. Funko Pop was my number 11, if that helps. I really like Funko Pop. It does seem like Funko Pop has made the 11 on many lists. Maybe I should just make a list called my favorite Funko Pop games so they get some love. But I really do like their stuff. Outer Rim was okay. It's your typical Fantasy Flight production. I know it sounds bad, but it looked neat and everything. It didn't like blow me away when I saw it. Planet did not come out this year. Era Medieval Age, no, those boards just right there. The boards cut it out for me completely. Marvel Champions has nice art. I wouldn't say the production values are really high. Black Angel's okay. Quacks did not come out this year. Clank Legacy, that was good. It's a fantastic game. Really cool stickers, but I don't know that I put it on top 10 production. Detective City of Angels, that's pretty good. Could have made the list for sure. Possibly. Let's it will be forgotten. No, I write a list. Paranormal Detectives? No. Edge, Dawnfall, War Chest. War Chest came out last year. So, alrighty. Well, I think I caught up on everyone's things. Well, I didn't get yelled at as much as I thought. Running back here to see what other ones I might have missed. Obscurio? No. So, again, I'm not just doing art. I'm doing everything inside the game. Alrighty. Well, there you go. Those are my top 10 productions. If you're watching this later on, tell me what your top 10 productions are, or some of them anyway. Put them in the comments below. Of course, this could change, and obviously this is very, very subjective, as all my lists are. All right, I won't be doing another one of these tomorrow or the next day because of the holidays, but we'll be back on Thursday with another top 10. But don't worry, in 40 minutes, me and Z are going to finish up our decade in review, where we take a look at 2018 and 2019 together. Since they're so close, we're going to finish that up. It's going to be interactive, be involved, and I should mention, in 1 week, our Kickstarter is going to launch. Tell everyone you know, even people who don't listen to Dice Tower, even they can back the Dice Tower. It's for everyone. All right, I'll see you in 40 minutes. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Top 10 Productions in 2019 on the Dice Tower.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower.